and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the insipid and perfidious forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program.
We need a drone.
We need a what?
A drone.
Why do we need a drone?
The camera angle from very high above.
From very high above. Of course, there's no skyscrapers.
Well, it doesn't matter. All I need is an excuse to get a drone.
Well, you do need an excuse to get that, and as if you needed yet another button to push. Maybe we should hire somebody to, take a video from high above.
Yeah. I think we're both going to push some buttons today. I'm just
probably
looking at the chalkboard.
Yeah, there's a few things happening on today's program. So we've got candidate for Sheridan County Sheriff Howie Fitzpatrick. Can't wait for him to be in the studio. I really like the guy. He spent a lot of years as a school resource officer, and really, in terms of law enforcement, he pretty much did every job that you can in the police department. So we're going to talk to him in just a few minutes, and then at the top of the hour, we're going to talk to Mark Jennings for House District 30. He's there's a couple of races in Sheridan County that are, I think they're just fascinating. It's the candidates that they've put up, because you have a real contrast between people who are genuinely conservative and folks who are just, if not total communist, borderline communist. For example, this little gem that was sent out, I got it yesterday, so I guess it wasn't sent out over the weekend. Micah Sturdivant. And the phrase I like on this is people over platform.
It's hard to pick a favorite. There are so many. There are several on the back.
There's quite a few on this one. And so over and over, Micah Sturdivant has said that she doesn't really ascribe to any sort of platform or anything. In fact, Ken, play the soundbite. Micah, platform for me. That's all right. I got it handy if you need me to play it.
I'm running because I believe that the most important aspect of the legislative process is listening to the people I represent, not any specific platform. That's exactly how I want to serve District 29. I believe that the most important part of the legislative process is listening to the people that I represent, not any platform.
Okay.
I knew you couldn't take it. Go.
She says that, and it implies to me, who is the current holder of that seat, that the issue has been, for her at least, that I don't listen.
Yes. Well, you never listen to me, or anybody else for that matter.
I have on my phone here, it's a wonderful little device, text messages saved back and forth over the last couple of years between myself and Micah.
No, but you don't listen.
I listen to any rational argument.
So how often would she contact you down when you were in Cheyenne?
She didn't very often. Usually what she would do is fire off an op-ed. And accuse me of slander or some other thing, basically baseless. So I stopped her husband on the street once. I thought it was more appropriate to approach him than,
Right.
approaching little Micah. And I said, does your wife do any research before she goes and writes these articles? Does she reach out to the candidates? And he kind of just played it off as, well, that's really her thing. I don't get much involved in that. And I suggested that maybe she ought to take a lesson from Scripture. And if you have aught with a brother, bring it up to them first, because they profess to be Christians and they know where I'm at. Anyway, so the next time she did, and I thought, well, that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And we had a little bit of back and forth. We didn't necessarily agree, but she at least was able to admit. And she said, hey, thanks for the dialogue.
Right.
Another time we had another issue. Not much came of that. And then she just quit dialoguing altogether. So for her to come out and say, the most important thing is to listen to your constituents,
Yeah, yeah.
I have to cry foul.
Well, me too. Play the one that says Micah listening 1.
That the most important aspect of the legislative process is listening to the people I represent.
So listening to the people that she represents, unless you happen to be a conservative.
Yeah.
In which case, she's not going to listen to you at all.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, that person happens to be your constituent, in which case you're just not going to even respond to an email, which is exactly what Micah Sturdivant did to me.
And I've said this before. When you are in that position and you get emails, hundreds of them a day, and they're coming from all across the spectrum, people are saying this or saying that, and then you're accused of not listening. It just depends on who you choose to listen to. Well, how does that work? That now we're back to, we're not a democracy, we're a republic, and you're hired to go represent people because of the position that you're going to take and your ability to defend it.
Well, and here's the thing, Ken. How many different Democratic type folks have I asked you to reach out to and see if we could get them on the program?
Well, there's only one type of Democratic folk, but I've reached out to many of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's been several that have been on the program. And when I send a candidate an email, I mean, it's genuine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had Gail Simmons on the program twice.
And until the other day when Jimmy Scovegard was on here, we've been able to have a rational back and forth. But when
I got to tell you, I enjoyed that. I mean, he totally had that.
I didn't.
But the point is, when people are in the middle of a campaign, they say all sorts of stuff, and they just assume that they're not going to be held accountable to them. That, I think the most important thing is listening. Really? Have you done any of that? Have you, sat down for an interview? Have you at all decided that maybe you ought to talk to one of your constituents? No. In fact, while we're at it, let's see here. Let me see if I can play this one here.
I'm not gonna.
Why not?
Campaigning is really busy.
Oh, now. You can spare 30 minutes.
Probably not.
Okay, so that was from Third Thursday here in Sheridan. I walked right up to her and said, hey, did you get my email? And she says, yeah, I did. Of course, she couldn't respond to it. She couldn't say, hey, thank you for the email, I'm not interested, or hey, thank you for the email, go screw yourself. No, none of that. She just didn't respond. So when I approached her at her booth at Third Thursday, the very first thing she tries to do is lie to me. Hey, so when are you going to come on the program? Oh, campaigning is really busy. And when I pressed her on it and I said, oh, come on now, you can spare 30 minutes. She says, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So instead of actually sitting down with your constituent and having a conversation on, I don't know, the most widely listened to conservative program in the entire state of Wyoming, a program that most of the Republicans in House District 29 listen to, you just ignore the email. And then when the guy asks you about it, your constituent, by the way, I live in House 29, she says, yeah, I'm just not going to do that. But the most important thing to Micah Sturdivant is listening. Play that soundbite again, Ken.
that the most important aspect of the legislative process is listening to the people I represent.
Yeah, except if they're conservative, and except if you happen to live in that district. All right, well, we'll get to more legislative races in just a second. But joining me in the studio is Howie Fitzpatrick. Howie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, there, try it again.
Thanks for having me.
Ooh, there we go.
There we go.
Well, I'm glad we could set it up. I realize your schedule is pretty busy.
But I can definitely spare 30 minutes.
Well, you can spare 30. And,
or 45 minutes.
And
or
you'll talk
however
to
long.
a constituent, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So first, why don't you tell my audience what you're running for and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm running for Sheridan County Sheriff. I've born and raised here in Sheridan. Lived here my whole life, except for the 4 years that I was in the Marines. I was an MP in the Marines, and then when I got out, I came back and I worked at the police department for almost 21 years.
Wow.
And I loved it. I enjoyed every bit of it. I did just about everything you can do as a police officer, from SWAT stuff to training, and training is my favorite aspect of
What
law
about
enforcement.
donuts?
Yeah, donuts.
I've
You guys
always
eat-
heard.
Well-
I've always heard that was a big deal.
So I had one supervisor that told me one time, we were at the fire department for the 9/11 ceremony, and they, of course, had donuts and coffee for everybody. And I had one supervisor say that if you grab a donut in uniform, I'm going to write you up.
Wow.
And of course, he was kidding. And of course, I didn't care because
They're donuts.
They're donuts. They're I refer to them as delicious deep fried breakfast circles,
Excellent.
or
You know-
crime fighting power rings.
when I lived in Buffalo, invariably I'd go grab a dozen donuts at the bakery and take them
Yeah.
up to the cop shop and just say, here for anybody. Well, I suggested that to Christine. I said, I'm thinking it's been a while since I've delivered donuts to the cop shop. And she says, I think that's a terrible idea. You get pulled over enough. You really want to get pulled over
Oh, no.
every day? And I'm like, no, honey.
So a funny story about donuts. I was working one night shift, and about 3 o'clock every morning, I would sit by Washington Park or something and try and see if I catch anybody speeding down
Sure.
coffee and catch up on paperwork or whatever. Anyway, I see a vehicle coming down the road with one headlight, and I'm like, okay,
Here we go.
I'll stop this one. As it got closer, I completely changed my mind because it was a Krispy Kreme delivery truck. Because the Krispy Kremes used to come out of Billings and deliver to the holiday stations back before they were Circle K. But I thought, absolutely not. There's no way that I'm going to stop, even at 3 in the morning.
You know what
Somebody
would
is going
happen?
to,
Somebody will take a
CNN
picture.
is going to be there somehow.
Yeah, that would have been a really bad idea. All right, Howie. So why are you running for sheriff? Seems, you're retired. You've done a lot in police work.
Yeah.
Why the sheriff?
There are a lot of reasons that I decided to run, but one of them that I guess is at the forefront is staffing. When I first started in 2001 at the police department, there were some days when there were only 2 deputies working on Fridays or Saturdays.
That seems like a busy time.
Yeah, it really is. And it consistently stayed that way. And to this day, there's still probably 2 deputies working on a Friday or Saturday.
And now, in your experience, because I grew up in Buffalo, and we got way too many deputies in town. But there's
Well, they should be out in the county.
well, I agree. But there's any given time you could drive around town and see at least 3.
Yeah.
Is only 2 deputies in the? That seems just to be way unusual to me.
It
What's
is
the real number?
and more so than as far as just having the numbers, it's a safety issue. If you have a domestic, which always requires a 2-officer response, 2-deputy response, if you have a domestic in Story, the rest of the county is uncovered for at least an hour, a minimum of an hour.
Oh, I'd say more than that.
And what if it's in Leiter, or Arvada? Pretty much the farthest point in the county that you can go and still be in Sheridan County. Then the rest of it, you're talking 2, maybe 3 hours, depending on the severity of the incident, and that's unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable.
So At the GOP debate that we had a couple weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
this topic came up, and it sounded to me like your opponent. It sounded like he was trying to handle the staffing situation. I mean, has this been an ongoing issue since he took over, or has this just been kind of a historical
Well,
thing?
I know that since he took over as sheriff, that they've lost more than 10 people.
10?
More than.
Wow.
I know some of those were terminations. I think one of them was a retirement.
Okay.
But I stand by this, and I'll die on this hill. People don't leave their jobs; they leave their bosses. I mean, they really do. And cops don't get into it for the money. It's not about money. Yes, we like to pay our bills, but we do this job because we like to help people, and like that's ingrained in me from probably 11 years old on. I've always wanted to help people, and he says he's addressing the staffing issue, but it has been consistent understaffing. You know, when I was just an example of the staffing issue, when I was at the police department, we were fully staffed up until about probably 2005, 2006, right around there, and we lost 10 officers, I think, in a year,
Wow.
and a lot of them went over to the sheriff's office for pay cuts. It wasn't about the pay. It was because we got a new leader that they didn't like. And you know, there's only so many places you can go as a cop in Sheridan. You can either go work for the sheriff's office, the police department, highway patrol, or if you want to commute to Buffalo, you could do that too. But you know,
Yeah, I know
it's
the
not
sheriff
like
there. I wouldn't go
it's
there.
not like if you're an electrician. You know, there's plenty of electrical companies around that you can go work for.
Okay, so specifically then, if it is a staffing issue, right, and people are leaving, and we know, I almost accept that as a fact that people don't leave a job because of pay. I mean, if it's really, really low, they will.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, most of the time it's management. So, what is it about the current management of the sheriff's department that creates this desire for deputies to leave? Do you think?
Honestly, I don't know because I don't work there, and I don't want to speak to something that I don't know about.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have any idea because I don't work there.
Okay. So anyway, we know that there's problems. We know that there's deputies leaving.
Right.
So what? And this may sound like kind of a general question, but what's the job of the sheriff?
Well, it's threefold. You have to provide public safety. You have to provide a jail, and you have to provide a process server.
Okay.
That's really it. That's really the job of the sheriff. Now, those are by state statute. As far as I'm concerned, the job of the sheriff is to protect all of the citizens of their county from the government.
Okay.
I mean, realistically, that's the way I see it.
I mean, when you before this interview, I looked at the oath a sheriff takes, and the only thing that it really says is that you're going to protect the Constitution.
Support and defend the Constitution.
It doesn't say anything about. Honestly, it doesn't really say anything about crime fighting. I
Right.
mean, it just says protect the Constitution.
Yep.
So let's say, play a little bit of what if here.
I like what ifs.
2 years down the road, President Buttigieg convinces Congress to.
God, did you just say that
Can
name
you-
on my?
Good Lord.
I know. Ken, we got to talk, man.
Yeah.
I'm just, apocalyptic scenario here. The SHTF.
Okay.
Anyway, long story short, Congress decides that they're going to outlaw and that people have to turn in any black rifle with an adjustable handguard, a detachable magazine, and a pistol grip. You get the mandate, so to speak. What does Sheriff Fitzpatrick do?
Well, firearms laws are federal, and I can't enforce those anyway. So, I'm certainly not going to assist the federal government in confiscating items that we have.
Okay, so you won't assist. That's a step. Will you resist?
Yeah, to the extent that we can. Yeah, I mean,
I get that.
I think that the best solution would be to just deputize everybody in this county, and then they wouldn't have any course of action. Oh, they're all authorized to have these because they're all peace officers. I think that would
Okay.
be one way to resist that. But I mean, that's not realistic, obviously. But yeah, absolutely. It scares me because I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I love my freedom seed spreaders.
All right. So that was a what if question. Let's talk about something that actually happened here. We often hear, and if you go to Cheyenne for any length of time, you'll hear this phrase, oh, that doesn't happen in Wyoming. And we have this idea that, well, this is Wyoming and everybody loves our guns. And, we would never let the federal government come in and seize a private citizen's firearms.
Right?
But it has happened here.
Sure, it has.
I know a lady in Bighorn that she doesn't have any felonies. And they seized her firearms, and it took her 3 years to get them back. And even so, when they came back without all the scopes on them, and she's
Right.
missing pieces and parts. So let's ask Sheriff Kirkpatrick. He actually was a good sheriff, but Sheriff Fitzpatrick this question. So the DCI calls you and they say, hey, the ATF's coming in and they're going to bust down this door and do this raid. What do you do?
Well, like I've told people before, the federal government, they do have jurisdiction over the entire country, unfortunately. I certainly don't assist. I may even make a phone call. I don't want to interfere with a federal investigation, but my phone call would probably be to the county attorney and say, hey, we need to figure something out and get this shut down because this can't happen. I know the case that you're referring to, and from my understanding of it, the gentleman that lived there had a letter from the governor,
Yeah, I saw it.
basically, saying, yeah, you have your gun rights back. But because it was federal charges, the feds didn't see it the same way.
Well, the fascinating thing, like I was at his house the day after it happened, and sure enough, that certificate was sitting on his table, and he told me that the very first thing the ATF agent said to him, the first one he got a hold of, was, "You need to get your state on the same page as the federal government." What does that guy really
Well, and-
care about that? I mean,
And if I'm not mistaken, it explicitly says in the Constitution that if it's not listed in the Constitution, the authority rests with the state.
yes.
And so, and that, along with that whole Second Amendment shall not be infringed thing, that kind of, those two combined, I think that the state's authority should supersede the federal government's authority in that situation.
Well, we do have a SAPA law that was passed in, what was that, 2022, Ken? I think so. Well, Jennings is coming in after you, Howie. We'll ask him. But we do have a SAPA law, and it specifically says that anybody who is paid with money that originates here can't assist the feds in an unconstitutional seizure. The question is, and here's my question for you.
Yep.
So as the sheriff, how do you determine whether something is constitutional or not?
Well, for law enforcement, as far as interpreting the Constitution, that's really not it is kind of our job. We have to make that split second determination usually. But certainly consult with the county attorney and find out, their take on it. Or, I wouldn't, I have other friends who are attorneys. I wouldn't,
Sure.
I wouldn't hesitate to reach out to them either. To me, it's always, the Constitution is really not that difficult.
No.
It's not that difficult to interpret. If it's inhibiting somebody's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, it's probably unconstitutional. So I think that consulting with the attorneys and going that route, I think, is probably the way that I would handle that. But like I said, it's not that difficult. You can pretty much determine pretty quickly, is this a violation or not? Is this a violation of our rights?
It's fascinating because when the Constitution was written, it was written in plain English. And the whole point was so that everybody could read it
Yeah.
and understand it. And I mean, still, okay, so that was 250 years ago. Well, 248 and change, whatever. But it's still not that hard to understand. I
No.
mean, it's plain English, certainly with the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I mean, shall not be infringed is shall not be infringed. All right, so another question for you. You
Sure.
were a school resource officer
Yes.
for quite a while. What would you say? What did that teach you? What did that experience teach you about being the sheriff?
Boy, that's a great question. I was a school resource officer at the junior high, and you know, everybody I hated junior high when I was a kid.
Me too.
I think that's a common factor for everybody. And so I was really kind of leery about going to work at the junior high as a cop. But I tell you what, after about a week, you couldn't have paid me enough to go to the high school. I loved it. As far as being sheriff, working at the junior high or in the schools, you know, you get to work with a multitude of agencies. So Department of Family Services, Advocacy and Resource Center, Compass, you know, the school district itself, and you kind of learn the inner workings of a lot of different places and how everybody has their role and how you have to work together as a team. And I think that honestly, that's law enforcement as a whole. You should, you know, especially as a sheriff, you should work well with others, and stay in your lane.
Okay. So if you are successful in your run for sheriff, what are the first three things you're going to do?
Well, so the first things that I'm going to do, well, the very first thing, this might upset a person.
Hey, that's what we do on this program.
Yeah, the very first thing that I'm going to do is make the under sheriff and the sheriff position a uniformed position. You lead by example, and if you can't throw on a uniform and go out and make traffic stops or respond to calls or assist the public, then you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is I'm going to sit down with everybody, individually and as a group, and find out what has been going right and what needs improvement. I know there's a lot that needs improvement. I know that there's got to be. We wouldn't be losing 10 people in
Right.
3.5 years, or more than 10. So that would be the next thing. And then the third thing that I would do, I really need to take a look at that budget, especially the medical stuff.
Oh boy, that's a huge one here.
It is. You know, I remember Sheriff Dominguez saying that it's down to $18 a day per inmate, and that's true if the average number of inmates is 75, and every day every inmate sees the nurse or the doctor. Then yeah, it's $18 a day. Because the reality is, the real number is, it's $500,000 a year.
Yeah.
That we spend on inmate medical expenses, and that's a contract that they have for, I believe it's supposed to be 2 nurses and a teledoc.
Okay.
And I just can't imagine that the county is getting $500,000 worth of medical services.
Well, I think that's a big topic, and if you can hang out for a minute, I want to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And after the break, let's talk about this whole medical situation, because I think that this is, one, I don't think a lot of people know about it, and two, it's a huge expense for the community. So, Ken, go ahead and hit it. Let's take a break, and we'll be back in a minute. The calendar says that it's summer, and you believe it. Oh, that's just so cute. But you obviously haven't lived here very long, have you? And you probably think that the weather is just going to continue to warm up. You don't have to worry about snow or ice or 30-degree temperatures anymore. In case you've forgotten, this is Wyoming, my friend, and that sort of thinking doesn't work here. 1 minute, it could be 75 and sunny, and 10 minutes later, snow. Whatever the weather, you need a pair of socks that'll keep your feet cool and dry even on the hottest of summer days. And if you happen to run into that spring snowstorm, you'll stay nice and toasty warm. Well, your feet anyway. To get you a pair, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. These are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell.
Iceland, France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics live on a Tuesday. I'm your host, David Iverson, Wyoming's big voice on the right. Joining me in the studio is Howie Fitzpatrick. He's running for Sheridan County Sheriff. Bigger question. I should have led with this one. I should know better. So, Howie, are you going to be a constitutional sheriff?
Yeah. So I'll be honest. I didn't know what a constitutional sheriff was until somebody asked me that. Actually, they asked me that when I announced that I was going to run at the Republican women's meeting. But I answered, yeah, well, the Constitution is the ultimate law of the land, and I'm going to defend the Constitution. And so I went home and I'm like, what is a constitutional sheriff? And then I looked at it and I'm like, well, basically all it says is that the sheriff is the top law enforcement officer in the county. And if the feds come in and try to take guns, you tell them no.
There you go.
If the feds come in and try to tell you to wear a mask, you tell them no. So yeah, absolutely, I'll be a constitutional sheriff.
Well, but I think I think it's bigger than that.
It seems simple.
Well, it is simple. But the reason I say that I think it's bigger than that is in many counties, the sheriff really has turned into an administrator of sorts. You go to the county commissioners meeting and you give them the report, and then you go back to your office and you write up some reports, and then you go to this meeting, and then you go to that meeting, and then you figure out what you have to provide in the jail. And you are kind of like the guy that just sits in the office, and it's very different than being the sheriff that is out in public,
right?
Actually mingling with the people. When I grew up in Buffalo,
Andy Taylor.
Yeah, well, okay,
Yeah.
He was the chief of police, but was he the sheriff?
He was the sheriff.
Okay, he was the sheriff.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up in Buffalo, all the time you would see the sheriff's truck parked down on Main Street. And, most of the time he was just going from business to business, siphoning off a cup of coffee at each one of them. But he was out talking to people.
Right.
If you left I was really young, but often I was in charge of locking up Alabam's, my parents' sporting goods store. And sometimes you forget to lock the door. You know, you got to set the alarm and get out of there in 10 seconds. And then you're so busy running out that you forget to lock the door. Well, invariably, like 30 minutes later, I'd get a call from Dad. Hey, sheriff called. You need to go lock the door.
Yeah.
But that's the sheriff's job. So let me ask you this: there's some issues going on in Sheridan County. Well, big one is it's all administrative healthcare. Okay, so first, what's the job of the sheriff or the sheriff's department as it relates to healthcare? And two, what would you do differently?
Well, the sheriff doesn't have a role when it relates to healthcare. The sheriff is a law enforcement agency. You know, we do have to take care of the inmates that are in the detention center, but that doesn't mean that taxpayers should have to pay for that. You know, if you and I go to the doctor and I don't pay their bill, then the doctor's going to send me to collections.
Yeah, they go after you.
They go after me. The way it works right now, if we send an inmate up to the hospital, they just bill the sheriff's office.
That's ridiculous.
And that's absolutely, unless, and this is by state statute, unless that injury or illness occurs as a result of arrest and it's malfeasance or tortuous, I think is the exact wording, on the part of the sheriff or designee, which means an employee, or if it's self-inflicted, it is, self-inflicted is also covered under the statute as their responsibility. But the other exception is if the illness or injury occurs while they're in custody,
sure,
through no fault of their own. But it's got to be at the expense of the county, it's at the expense of the taxpayers if it's caused by detention staff.
Well, so for instance, you know, if I get arrested by the current sheriff right after this interview, I'm a diabetic. Okay, so you know, my medical bills are way high.
Sure.
So I go to the jail. Well, if I don't have my insulin, I'm going to die, and I got to have it like all day long. I have an insulin pump. So I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but all of that is my responsibility.
Right.
That's not up to the sheriff. It was
no.
You know, the sheriff's responsibility is to give me a shiny new pair of bracelets
yes.
and take me in. I mean, that's
fitted.
where it ends. Yeah. So now we're paying for health care, and we got this big giant hospital up on top of the hill. Why are we doing that, in your opinion? I know you haven't worked there for a while.
I couldn't tell you. It makes no sense to me, but I hate to be a conspiracy theorist.
That's all right. We wear tinfoil hats here.
However, $500,000 a year for a medical contract doesn't seem to me to be a savings of any kind. I can't imagine that we're getting $500,000 worth of medical services.
I mean, that's a huge number.
Huge number.
I've actually waded into that conversation a little bit with the current sheriff. And my impression, not to get into any details at all, my impression was it's a CYA issue. Rather than risk the county being sued because of negligence or anything like that, whatever they need, they're going to get. And there's kind of we'll sort it out later, but it seems to me like it never really gets sorted out.
Yeah.
That's just my perspective.
And I don't want the county to get sued either. I mean, that's, you know, counterproductive, but at the same time, you can't live your life or run your office on the premise that, well, what if we get sued? You have to, I mean, it's in law enforcement, it's not a matter of when you get, or if you get sued, it's when.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say, we live in a litigious society.
Very.
So if it's law enforcement or if it's the school, you're going to get sued.
Mm-hmm.
And the default position with most school districts is we just settle.
Yeah. Well, in law enforcement's the same way. We'll just settle. Because if as far as like if somebody sues a law enforcement officer for violating their constitutional rights, there's a very high probability that the state is going to settle with that individual, because if it goes to trial and it's found that that officer did violate somebody's constitutional rights, they can no longer be a peace officer.
Right.
Period. As they should.
Absolutely.
As it should be.
All right, so we got a few minutes. I want to switch gears real quick.
Yeah.
And this kind of came up at the debate too, but I think that it got a little bit muddled. I have had several people tell me that they've been sitting at home listening to the scanner, and they've heard an illegal immigrant be contacted by law enforcement. And then, well, I guess I don't know that they're illegal quite yet, but the law enforcement officer calls it in. Hey, this person is illegal, and then they get released. Now, like I say, I've had lots of people tell me that. I don't know that that's actually happened, but here's the question for you. If you're the sheriff, what are you going to do with illegal immigrants?
Well, I think or
aliens.
The very first thing is notify the federal agencies, because while we don't have authority to hold somebody on a federal immigration crime, we would have to hold them on a state violation. And if there is that state violation, I mean, you're contacting them for a reason, unless it's, unless it's a
well, they're
minor,
stealing an ATM.
Yeah, if
that happened here,
that's theft. So hold them on that theft, and tell ICE, hey, they're illegal. Come up here and get them. I find it. I know that Sheriff Dominguez said that he has a daily phone call with ICE. I'm not sure that that's accurate, but
I can't see that it is.
I
mean, maybe so.
Maybe. I know that we can't hold federal prisoners in our jail, but still, I think that, we should notify.
Okay. Are you going to honor federal ICE detainers if one shows up?
Again, our jail's not set up to hold federal prisoners, and the reason being is federal prisoners require different circumstances. Like they get, and this sounds silly, but they get extra snacks, and
I'm sure they do.
They get all these extra little perks for being a federal prisoner, and our jail,
of course they do.
Our jail staff is not does not accept, or our jail does not currently accept federal.
Could you take them to Buffalo?
You could, and they have. I don't see any issue with that. And there's also the 287G agreements that, I think Sheridan County is probably the only county in the state that doesn't have that. I'm not positive about that, but that's an agreement that basically deputizes law enforcement with federal jurisdiction so they can detain. There's different categories of that.
Would you do that?
Yeah, I definitely want to look into that and figure out which category is going to fit us best.
Okay.
But, there are some great people here who are not here legally. But if the first thing that you do to be part of this country is against the law,
you need to go.
Yeah, it's time to go. Come back and do it the right way.
That's right. All right,
I'm glad to have you.
Well, we've got just a few minutes left. Why don't you give me your elevator pitch? Tell me why we should vote for Howie Fitzpatrick, and if my viewers want to get a hold of you, tell us how we do that.
Yeah, this is me. I mean, I am an open book. I'm what you see is what you get type of guy. 25 years of law enforcement experience. I know that some people think, well, there's more to it than that, but really there isn't. It's about treating people like people and doing the right thing for the right reason. Defending that glorious document that was masterfully written almost 250 years ago. And that's what it boils down to. We have to take care of Sheridan County, and I'm the guy to do that. I work well with others, and if people want to get a hold of me, they can get on my website, which is howieforsheriff.com, and then also email howie.for.sheriff@gmail.com, or you can call me. My phone number is easy. It's 307-751-6782.
All right.
And it's out there for anybody. If you want to get a hold of me, I actually took a call yesterday from somebody in North Carolina filling out an absentee ballot. He's in the Army, and he said, "I have one question I don't want to ask you," and so he asked me the question. We talked for half an hour or so, and that was that.
Got his vote,
But
huh?
yeah,
Right on.
believe so.
All right, Howie. I appreciate your time, my
Hey,
friend.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime. And
Awesome.
certainly after you win the sheriff's race, we'll have you in a
Yes.
couple times. And
Yeah, awesome.
but appreciate it.
I look forward to it.
All right. Well, another topic that I've been wanting to talk about desperately is House District 40, Marilyn Connolly. Oh, Lord. We're going to do that. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, there's a whole bunch of stuff we got to talk about that lady. Back in a minute. You think?
I'm Karen Weber, and I'm running for House District 5 in Goshen County. We need to decrease the size and scope of government. Expenditures have increased 59% under Governor Gordon. We need to decrease residential property taxes because you cannot own your own home if you can be taxed out of it. In terms of the economy, right now, agriculture ranks below the media in the Cowboy state. Agriculture GDP has decreased 22% in the last 7 years, and that is unacceptable. It's very important for Goshen County that we support our agricultural producers. That's what I want to do as your next representative. I ask for your vote on August the 18th. Paid for by Weber for House District 5.
The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
You won't find him leading a horse out of a barn or leaning against a corral with the sun setting behind him, because Wyomingites don't need a candidate who creates a good photo op. What you will find is a hard-working, experienced leader who believes Wyoming should always come first. A conservative grounded in strong values and steady principles. Ready to lead Wyoming the right way. Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm David Iverson, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time. You know, I mean, it's a record I wish the rest of the media would at least try to eclipse, but they're never going to.
I tried to get you yesterday, I thought, but I was the one that was wrong.
Yeah,
Weird.
You did not get me yesterday.
Actually, I think they do.
Do they now?
They get it wrong 99% of the time.
True.
So at least they're consistent with your going for good.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it's good that you were early. By the way, we were joking before the show that Jennings Standard Time comes with fluctuations.
It has seemed my whole life to be that way.
Well,
Yes.
I'm glad you were early because you can weigh in on this incredible subject. It's not incredible at all. In fact, it makes my stomach turn. Marilyn Connolly, House District 40. So yesterday she posted a video, and I'm not going to be able to get through all of it. Ken likes the things that he has in the studio, so we should probably not listen to that much of it. But she did post a video explaining exactly what a conservative is. And, it's great. I just really wish she would follow her own advice. Hit it. Maybe. Our timing is not so good, evidently. There we go.
Good morning, House District
Gosh, it looks like
40
a prune.
folks. Marilyn Conley here, running to be reelected for your legislative representative. I'm thinking this morning about what it means to be a conservative, and a leader.
So far, so good.
Yeah, well,
I am a
yes.
true Wyoming conservative. Being a true conservative means more than wearing the label. It means respecting our Constitution, defending private property, supporting our energy and ag industries, protecting taxpayer dollars, and making decisions based on what's right for Wyoming, not on political
Okay, I
pressure.
can't handle any more of it.
Being a true
Stop!
Do you have any of those little airplane barf bags? Or
I wish I did.
Wow.
All of that is great. I would just really wish that she would do it. But Ken, how much money did Marilyn Connolly vote to spend over the budget?
When we started that thing, and I got to make sure that I'm on the right person here.
There you go.
I don't want to look at you more than I have to. Although I do love the hat. It says it's a red hat. Get over it. The House cut about half a billion dollars out of the budget, and she voted, I think there were 247 amendments. Most of those amendments were to put money back in or to increase funding for one thing or another. She voted for all but 7 of those increases.
Wow.
Consistently. It was just
But she's a fiscal conservative, Ken, and she protects private property rights, and she is a true conservative. The truth is, Marilyn Connolly has always been this person that if you question her record, question her on anything, immediately she moves to, I'm not going to stand for this. I am a true conservative. When the truth is, that she's the furthest thing from it. Go back to like 2021, when counties across the state were voting whether or not to censure Liz Cheney over the January 6th stuff. Now in Johnson County, all but 2 people voted to censure Liz Cheney. So I can't remember how many precinct people there were. I mean, it was probably like 48, 50, somewhere around there. But all but 2 of them voted to censure Liz Cheney. So the Central Committee comes around, that's the state meeting, and instead of going to that meeting, Marilyn Connolly gave her vote to Bill Novotny, knowing that Bill Novotny was Liz Cheney's campaign manager, or at least he was in the first campaign. So she gives him her proxy vote. He goes down to Rock Springs, which is where the meeting was being held. And
on which side of the road did he go?
Well, probably the opposite side. This is true. So he goes down there and he uses her vote to vote against the censure of Liz Cheney. So when I questioned her about it, it was, I didn't vote that way. That was Bill Novotny. That was him. I did not vote that way. And then the question was, well, Marilyn, you knew what the vote was. You knew how the county voted, and you didn't go to the meeting.
Yeah.
So at best, you could say you didn't show up. But Marilyn Connolly, she's got a long history of distorting her record. Now, I've got a video. I don't think we'll probably get through all of it. But Ken, I think it's called, let me just get the title here. I think it's called Marilyn. But it's a pretty long video. Let's go ahead and just watch a little bit of it.
I don't see it.
Well, here, I can play it.
Says debate montage.
That might be it.
I don't believe that we should be storing nuclear fuel in Wyoming. I think Wyoming's uranium would benefit from the nuclear energy, and we just need to look into the future. We cannot, if I could have my way, I'd keep Wyoming the way it is right now, or maybe 15 years ago, but we can't. We've got to look at moving into the future, whether we like it or not. It's here, it's coming, and so we need to make sure that our local people have the information that they need to make good decisions. And I wouldn't vote to support nuclear spent fuel here at all right now. Maybe some nuclear micro reactors to benefit our uranium business, but as far as the other, no way.
Okay.
I believe there
pause.
was a resolution.
Okay, so here is House Joint Resolution 3, and put it on the screen, Ken. This is the one that would have put the storage of nuclear waste up to a vote of the people. And you can see right down here, here's Marilyn Connolly voting no on it. Okay, so, I mean, one thing to keep in mind when it's about her voting record, it's never accurate with her. Go ahead and continue playing on that.
To let the people vote on this in the Wyoming legislature, and I'm pretty sure my opponent voted against that. So I'll throw that out there for consideration.
3 minutes, Marilyn Connolly.
Yeah, we got to remember that this last session was a budget session, and our whole goal as legislators down there was to deal with the budget. And I voted against several bills for introduction. Doesn't mean that
7 of them, I think, is what I heard.
Okay, she said several. That boat don't float. Yeah, she voted against several of them, but she also voted to introduce several of them, including one of hers, which dealt with extending combat veterans benefits to all veterans. Regardless of where you stand on that, I would think, especially in light of how things have been lately, the nuclear
Thank you.
fuel
Nuclear
issue and the nuclear waste issues would be of a higher priority than that one. And that's only one just off the top of my head. But that dog don't hunt.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Well, I want to address something that she said there that is that's actually not accurate. Any bill, you're given 3 readings, including the budget bill. When you're in a budget session, and I hear this from the left, oh, we've got to concentrate on the budget, and I wish they would be honest about that. But the reality is that you're there for 20 days. You can only tie up a short number of days with the budget bill because it has to have 3 readings and it has to happen within a certain set of amount of time. So that's a false thing that those people like to say about the budget bill right out of the gate. There is plenty of time to do some other things. Do we do too much? Probably. Do we get off in the weeds in some things? Probably. But it is absolutely false that we can't chew gum and walk at the same time.
Well, and I think the other thing I know the other thing that really irritates me is, well, I didn't vote against the bill. I voted against introducing it. I totally agree with the bill. I just voted as a procedural thing, and I just didn't think it should be brought up. That's bullcrap, which is what Mark Jones is about to say. Play it.
that I'm opposed to the issue, it means I voted against it being introduced at this time. I know there's more work to do on it, and I think it would, if the people want to vote on it, I'm all about the people having the right to vote and make those decisions. But that's why I voted against it on introduction, is because I knew it was going to take a lot of debate, and I wanted to use that time to debate the budget. And as it was, we ended up with 120 amendments to our budget. So
we ended up with 120 for each reading, so there was 240.
Now listen to the applause. 1 minute, Mark Jones.
I hear that used, that it's a budget session as a reason not to vote for a lot of good bills. We've passed some of the best Second Amendment legislation in Wyoming during budget sessions. We also passed a bill to protect kids from groomers during this last budget session that Ms. Conley voted against. And we also passed a bill to stop Wyoming from recognizing driver's licenses issued to illegal aliens in other states during a budget session. So I hear that used way too often to justify not doing the right thing. There's plenty of great legislation that passes during a budget session, every budget session that exists in the Wyoming legislature.
Because I'm not going to take this. House Bill 116, driver's license for illegal aliens. I am absolutely opposed. I did vote for that bill. I voted for it on concurrence. And I did it because it needed to go to the Senate. There was some work that needed to be done on that bill. It went to the Senate. It got improved. It came back to the House. And I voted in favor of that bill on concurrence.
Okay, so stop.
Grooming.
So she says House Bill 116, that she voted for it on concurrence. Ken, let's show everybody what the digest on House Bill 116 looks like. So on the first vote, Marilyn Connolly voted against it. On third reading, Marilyn Connolly voted against it. And this bill died in the Senate. It did not come back for concurrence. Marilyn Connolly voted alongside, the rest. And look at the list of people that she voted with on this one. Landon Brown, Ken Chestick, Democrat. Ken Clouston, Democrat who can't spell. Steve Harshman, major Democrat that can't spell. Lloyd Larson, J.T. Larson, Bob Nicholas, Ivan Posey, Democrat. Carly Provenza, Democrat. Trey Sherwood, Democrat. Daniel Singh, probably a Democrat. I'm just kidding. Liz Storr, Democrat. Art Washit, J.D. Williams, may as well be a Democrat. Cody Wiley, definitely a Democrat. And Mike Yen, really a Democrat. This is House Bill 116 that she's talking about, and she can't even get the votes right. Now, to be fair, Mark Jones doesn't get it right either when he responds. But let's go ahead and finish out that soundbite, and then we'll get to Mark's interview.
And I can tell you unequivocally, I absolutely supported the grooming bill on third reading. And it's absolutely obvious on my record. So there, with that said, there's quite a few of those that I've been challenged about my record, and I'm perfectly clear on it.
House Bill 116, Ms. Conley voted against it on third reading. There would have never been a concurrence had that bill not passed third House reading.
This is what I was referring to.
So it was an attempt to kill the bill. That's always an excuse you hear from left-leaning politicians when they vote against something that's popular and it's called out, is that, well, it wasn't good enough, but I voted for it later. It kind of reminds me of John Kerry when he ran for president in 2004. He said, I voted for the bill before I voted against it. Many of you will remember that. The grooming bill would have never made introduction and even got on the floor if Ms. Conley had her way. There was also the library bill that took very sexually explicit materials, stuff that's so bad it would get you banned from the internet, that moved it from the children's section of the library to the adult section. It didn't take it out of the library. It wasn't a book ban. It was just moving it to the adult section so parents could make a decision whether or not their children saw that. Ms. Conley voted against that bill too. So,
okay, so here it is, just so you can see it. House Bill 10. She voted against it. There we go. There's her name. The truth is, Marilyn Connolly can say that she's a conservative all she wants. She can put videos out on Facebook claiming to be something that she's not. But that's what redcoats always do. And Marilyn Connolly has a very long history of doing that. Just go to her voting record, go to Evidence-Based Wyoming. You'll find out that she voted with the Republican majority, a whopping 20-some% during the last session. So definitely not a conservative, definitely not somebody that you want to vote for, and certainly as it relates to the legislature, definitely somebody you don't want to believe.
And I just want to mention one other thing here. if you go to Evidence-Based Wyoming, they have a page where they talk about essentially how effective is a legislator. How often do they win? How often do they come down on the winning side? She's dead last.
Yeah.
She's the biggest loser.
Let's see here. While we're talking about it, let's see here. I'll just pull it up. So Marilyn Connolly, if you go all the way down in the House of Representatives, there she is. Oh, I was wrong. She only voted with the Republican majority 18.3% of the time. I mean, a Democrat by any
Wyoming
measure.
conservative.
Yep, that's what she says. All right, so Mark, you're running for re-election, election again. How do you put that?
Well, that's a good question.
Re-election, I would say.
Re-election, because I've been in previous times.
Okay,
Several.
you've had a debate. There've been a couple of forums lately. How do you feel that the race is going?
You know, talking to the people at the doors is what I use to gauge that at. I've had nothing but very good response. I've had a couple of people that say they're probably not going to vote for me, but you always run into those.
Oops, my bad.
And but at the doors, the people are very supportive. The number one thing is property tax reform.
Like across the board, number one.
Across the board.
Well, that's not what I hear from like Mike at Sturdivant and the rest of them. They say it's health care and affordable housing.
I have yet. I'm not sure I've heard affordable housing at all. I've brought it up a couple of times, and I've only had health care maybe a couple of times, which health care is an issue that in Wyoming we have to look at. What is the role of government? And last I seen, it's not supposed to be.
It's not in healthcare at all.
I've heard from some other campaigns that a lot of people are hearing Freedom Caucus.
I've heard some of that.
Have you? I've heard none. So it's interesting.
No, I've heard it from other people.
Oh,
like
okay.
you said, I've had it brought up a couple of times when I said something that triggered that conversation. I've not had them bring it up to me.
Yeah, and what you just said, I think, is really key. If you go out there and you say something and trigger that, of course, that's going to be the topic that comes up. So how honest is it to say, this is what I was here if you're the one bringing it up, Micah?
Yeah.
And mostly the ones that I've said something that triggered it were the one gal admitted. She said, well, I'm really a Democrat. I just switched over because I wanted to have say in the primary.
Well, I think that there's a lot of that going on, but I don't think that it's nearly as widespread as the media makes it out to be. I mean, let's be honest, there are not that many Democrats in the state.
Most of them are already over in our party.
Right.
If you go through the county records, there's about 280 in my district, which is half of the county, which is probably thicker than
most.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's enough to make a difference in an election.
Certainly. In a Wyoming election. I mean, Ken, what was the first one you won? What did we decide yesterday? It was 38 votes.
Yeah, 38 votes in the primary, and then it got confusing.
So, all right. So you said that that property taxes are number one. Now, my biggest complaint, I think, with what we've done in the legislature up to this point is there's just this huge mess of exemptions, and I don't think that a lot of people can figure them out. I mean, there's veterans, there's longtime homeowners, 25% here. I have
65 and older, and
yeah. I mean, it seems to me to be a big mess. What's the solution?
Well, I have been a proponent for years of going to acquisition, and I still think that is the right answer in the short term. That you get to actually set the taxation by an arm's length, honest transaction of what the value was, because you exchanged hard-earned money for an asset. And so I still think that is the right one. But I will tell you, and I get very frustrated that people take the wind out of the sails with all these other things, the exemptions included. My good friend Ken has really one of the better ideas. It's not a straight acquisition. It's a blend, and I think it's one that certainly ought to be looked at. Now, maybe it ought to wait until we get the acquisition in, but it's the right answer.
And
What
is that answer?
His answer is that when you set that tax value, when you have it paid, then you're done. And so whatever, like a sales tax, I think is that.
Yeah,
basically.
I kind of describe it as that way. It would be like a sales tax when you purchase that home, and once that tax has been satisfied, you're done.
Yeah, you're done. And I do think that is one that definitely ought to be looked at. I do think that we have to get the acquisition in first.
So
But what about our schools? How do we pay for our schools?
That's my question,
Yeah.
fellas. All right, so let's say we do Ken's plan, right? That you pay the tax on it, and then after you're done, you're done. No more property taxes. Well, okay, so the schools are funded with property taxes, the county's funded with property taxes. Where's all the money going to come from?
Well, actually, that is why I get frustrated, not so much with Ken, but with some of these other people that say, oh, let's get rid of property tax. Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to figure out where you're spending the money. And so in schools, how much truly could we find in actual savings? Because it's out there. There's no, and how much fraud is going on in our state? How much money are we actually bleeding off? And that's the first thing. And so that's why I say acquisition is the first step. And then we find out what the real numbers are. And acquisition, if the worst case scenario people are right, it would be an issue of a few tens of millions of dollars. If we're right, we get to sort out what the actual need for the cash is first. And then you can take a hard look at, do you want to replace that money to the schools with a different methodology or revenue stream? We don't need a new revenue stream at all, but we can certainly find ways to move that over from waste or things of that nature. And we don't know until we implement.
Sure. Ken?
Couple of things. We are mandated by the Constitution to pay for the schools.
Yeah.
And property tax isn't the only way that comes from. We have state lands all over the place, and the revenue from those state lands goes to the schools. So you're absolutely right, Mark. We need to figure out where the money's going, exactly what needs to be spent, what it costs, and we can arrange, regardless, through the budget, to pay for that, regardless of where it comes from. It's not like if we get rid of property tax, we can't do anything else.
Yeah,
we're mandated to, so they'll be paid for.
The other side of this, fellas, and Mark, you hit the nail on the head, that we are bleeding off a tremendous amount of money in education. Let's just one example: Sheridan County School District Number 2, their budget is $74 million for 1 year. $74 million. That's close to 3 times, it's not quite, but it's almost 3 times the budget for the entire city of Sheridan. And what frustrates the crap out of me is the school doesn't pay for a fire department, they don't pay for a police department, they don't pay for roads, they don't pay for transportation, they don't pay for buildings, they don't pay for building maintenance. So where is that $74 million coming from? Now, we got a viewer on the show says, ease property taxes by reducing the amount of school districts in each county. Only 1 school district per county. Okay, what do you think about that, Mark?
That's a good place to start looking at. There's redundancies, there's efficiencies. In my 10 years that I was in, I never saw an efficiency go back to the people. Never. And there's always efficiencies. I mean, if you were in real business, you're always looking for efficiency. And so it is ludicrous to think that none of those efficiencies could go back. Your viewer is absolutely right that we ought to be looking at that.
Well, and so during the debate, I don't think you guys, maybe you did, I don't remember, but one of the questions during the debate was Wyoming should go to 23 school districts and 1 for the reservation. And what that would do is it would eliminate all of the administration bloat that we have. And I think, honestly, that, well...
A good share of it.
A good share of it. So the argument here in
I
Sheridan...
have confidence that there will still be bloat, governmental bloat.
The argument here in Sheridan is, okay, well, what do you do with Claremont? And Claremont and Arvada, they're way out in the boonies. We got to have a school district for them. Well, Casper has Midwest, and that's, as the crow flies, pretty similar distance.
1860s or somewhere along there, we came up with this thing called a telegraph. We actually could reach across many miles.
Really, I hadn't heard of that.
It was a crazy invention, and you look at that in today's society. People work with charter schools or private schools, and they'll have teachers zoomed in from Florida. So I don't know. Last time I looked, Clearmont's a little closer than Florida, and put a principal there. But
well, exactly. And I think if you look at,
I just wanted to jump. It ain't that tough.
No.
We have really good teachers.
Yes,
They're
that's right.
professionals. And I've said this many times. If somebody's that good and professional, they don't need 5 layers of supervision over the top of them. They can manage to teach a 6th grader how to read.
Well, I don't know, Ken, because our test scores suck.
Well, but again,
that's the system.
Again, some of that is that just like there's waste in the financial aspect, there's a need to go back to performance based and really go back to the 3 R's and what is in the basket of goods. And what I'm saying is we should at least look what's in the basket of goods that we're paying for.
Well, and I don't think that people realize how much money that we continually dump into education every year. And one of the shocking statistics, I don't even know if it's a statistic, it's a fact, that every year education spending in Wyoming goes up $100 million. $100 million. And you guys don't even have to do anything to make that happen. It just does it on its own.
Steve Harshman built that in. It was when I was in, it was between 80 and 100 million, depending on the year and how much revenue was coming in. But it's an escalator built in. It's going to happen. It's one of the things that in real life, your wages don't come out that way with an escalator built in like that.
All right, Mark, let's talk about your race. Okay, so you've got an opponent this time around, which is something kind of new for you. Previous elections, you haven't had an opponent before.
Well, I've only missed one, I think, or 2.
Well, there's Gail Simmons, but I don't really count her.
Heineman.
By the way, Gail
Burgess.
was in my neighborhood yesterday, and she didn't stop by my house.
Oh,
that's really sad. Yeah, I was really looking forward to it. In fact, I was at the mailbox when I saw her, and I got my mail and I raced home and I said, "Honey, we're about to get a visit from Gail Simmons."
Maybe she saw the Claymore mine.
Well, there was the gun turret that she probably saw. But anyway, so you've got an opponent. How do you think your race is going? Why should Sheridan County or House District 30 voters vote for Mark Jennings instead of the other guy?
Well, I have a proven track record, first of all, and we've always encouraged people to go back and look at our voting record, what you were doing there with Miss Connolly this morning. I've always encouraged people to do that. I want to be transparent. We're supposed to work for the people. And so I've always had a good rating on the indexes for conservatism. I like to think that I'm going to get some more done on the property tax reform. The rebates they're fine as far as they go, but they don't really scratch where it itches. And the reform, if we're going to keep our kids here, we got to stop this nonsense of taxing on an unrealized capital gains. I think turning the idea of that we have too many frivolous laws and into things that people lose freedom every time we pass a law, and we pass a lot of them.
All right, so give me a couple of examples.
Frivolous laws? Well, I think you just talked about one there it wasn't frivolous, but the escalation in school financing, irregardless of what the year's like, that escalation. We do a thing called a rolling average, a 3-year rolling average. There's one that, who gets a rolling average?
Explain that.
So if I have a child in school district 2 and I decide I want to move them to school district 1, the 20-some thousand dollars that they receive in school district 2, they continue to get that the first year after that child's gone. So now we're paying for it in 2 districts, even though the child is only in district 1. School year number 2, it goes down a little, and school district, or year number 3, it goes down again to school district 2. And they're saying, well, that made it a little easier on them. Well, of course it did. It made it easier.
But at the same time, the school district you move to is also getting paid for that
at the
student.
exact same time. It's really double dipping is what it is on the taxpayer. And so I think there's a lot of things of that nature that we do that that you could look at here. Not more than 2 or 3 years ago, they were doing governor's tags or commissioner's tags,
The
and
king's deer.
and as long as those people want to, they can pay big money for that tag, and the law applies to the rest of us that once we get a tag, say a moose tag or a sheep tag, we never get to apply again on a bull moose or a ram. And I think the law ought to apply across the board. So I think it's incorrect that my very first one was I actually ran a repealer while I was on a committee, which they did away with as soon as I ran this bill, and that was to steam engines still have primacy on water.
Really?
Yeah, and it's there's only 3 steam engines that I'm aware of. I'd done the research at that time. There was only 2 that were working. Now there's the big boy.
Does Steve Harshman count?
You know, he might. And so I think there's plenty of examples of laws. I had a good friend that got hit with I think a political attack by using the law.
I was just about to ask you about this one.
And that law was written in '88 before the internet was ever along, and you can't help your friend sell a vehicle or something. You don't have a license to do so. And things like that are just frivolous, and it's overreach and needs to be repealed.
You know, a lot of times when we think of frivolous laws, right, it's the, well, you know, you can't spit on the sidewalk, or, you know, the steam engine one.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of laws that really do infringe on your freedom.
Yeah.
They're in statute right now. And it's not that they're just outdated. There are some that are, but there's a lot of them, like this whole not being able to sell a vehicle on social media. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
And many of them are very egregious. When they took doctors and nurses that were wanting to do clinics, free clinics, they were looking for a way for them to get insurance. And so what they did was they made them employees of the state. And so they got insurance, and so then the facilities, the hospitals, or a facility came along and said, "Well, we want some of that."
I can't figure out how this would go wrong.
Yeah, and so we made the facility an employee of the state while that clinic was going on. It was amazing to me that the only person that they left open to lawsuit was the janitor. And so he didn't get to become and so I look at that and I think there's just on and on and on of things like that we've done to people that we ought to start looking at repealers.
You and I had a conversation the other day about special classes of people. You know, the judiciary has come out and they've said, we think that penalties should be higher if you threaten the judge.
Yeah.
We've heard recently here, some of us have been attacked for voting against one to protect doctors and nurses in emergency rooms, that sort of thing. Given that concept, what's wrong with the concept? Where are we at?
Well, the concept, while I've sat on judiciary, actually right here in Sheridan, they wanted protection for the judges and the judge's family away from the courthouse also. Well, the same stand your ground works for him as it does for us. Well, if you go down that road very far, you're you're creating special classes of people, and their lives are more valuable than other people's. No, they're all valuable.
Now, hold on, guys. So, I mean, certainly we don't want people threatening judges.
It's already against the law.
Okay.
Prosecute the law that's in place.
You don't want people threatening legislators. You don't want
No.
people threatening teachers. You don't want
Or
people
janitors.
threatening anybody.
Media
Yeah.
personalities.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with it. And, you know, it's laws like that. I mean, we subsidize 5 young lawyers just coming out of law school at UW to go to small communities because lawyers are, I guess,
in short supply. Huh?
In short supply. And I look at that and everybody's got a phone, pick it up and call, and I would be for repealing things like that.
What about electricians? They're all busy on the
Yeah.
data centers. So are we going to train some more electricians and
Subsidize them?
bribe them to go live in
Well,
Torrington?
I think we're dealing with a dual problem here. The first is that politics is always downstream from culture. And what I mean by, and it's not me that said that, that was Andrew Breitbart. But what he means is something changes or happens in our culture. And it takes a while for, you know, us to pass a law or for our government to react to it. So it's always behind. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's technology or whatever, we're always behind. But the second thing is those things that we pass, and a lot of them deal with the internet, but a lot of those things that we pass, we don't go back and correct them. And so we end up with stupid laws like our friend that got popped for selling your vehicle or selling a vehicle on social media. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How often do you see somebody, hey, my dad sucks at social media, and so I'm posting this for him?
Yeah.
All the time. And that is essentially what our friend got nailed for.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Foolishness. And then a lot of times the solution that even though it's downstream, many times the solution is a leftist solution that is going to exacerbate the problem. Here, we created the problem, now let us try and fix it by creating a bigger problem.
Well, and so it's not just your race, but there are other, in fact, I think both Ken and yours, Mark, and also in House 29, there are candidates that are, I don't think it's a stretch at all to call them progressives.
Oh, very much so.
And so, you know, their response to a lot of these issues that we've been talking about, education, a lot of the things when we were talking about with Howie Fitzpatrick, I mean, the solution to those is not going to be, you know, expanding freedom. It's going to be creating a law to make it harder for you to, you know, open a business or harder for you to get your kids, you know, to be schooled at your house. I mean, it's always seems to be a progressive response to things that we should just take care of on our own.
That with my opponent, that is especially, and I think probably Ken's probably a lot too. You know, he says, "Well, I'm for the downtrodden," and well, me too. Get government to quit downtrodden them. And what is the role of government, and what is the role of society? Society, if you want to talk about charitable giving, absolutely. I pastor a church, and charitable contributions are very important, that we're commanded as Christians to do that. We're not commanded as Christians to demand that our government steal money from other people to use as forced charity to help anyone.
Okay, so let me ask you about that. In the Wyoming Constitution, and I can't quote it word for word, but essentially it says that you can't give any money to any private organization except for, and this part I can quote, necessary support for the poor. So think about that for a minute. We're going to take our last break, and when we come back, let's talk about this whole forced charity business.
Okay.
The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bien for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Welcome back to the program. It's Cowboy State Politics Live, moving through a Tuesday morning. I'm your host, David Iverson, doing what I was born to do with talent given to me by God himself. Welcome back to the program. We're joined by Representative Mark Jennings, former representative. Is it representative? Is it former representative?
As long as you don't do anything to really besmirch that, you get to keep the title lifelong.
Don't forget to use honorable.
Honorable representative.
The honorable representative.
All right. So pretty soon, I'm going to be publishing an article about your opponent and the organization that he worked for, still works for in Sheridan. It's the Hub on Smith. It is essentially the senior center. And there has been a tremendous amount of our money go to the Hub on Smith. Now, if you drive by this place, it's obvious that they get a heck of a lot of cash from a lot of different sources. Yeah. And I would argue that that thing could probably be funded privately.
And should be.
But it's not. Every year they go to the city and they go to the county and they ask for more cash. And by the way, Ryan, this is your notice that there is an article coming. And if you would like to comment on it, you are more than welcome to. Just call me. You know how to get a hold of me. Anyway, so you mentioned earlier, Mark, that you're opposed to what is called forced charity. First, explain what that is.
It's the government taxing the large group of people and taking from the people's wallet, and then they pick winners and losers who's going to get that cash. And on the charity side of it, it's forced charity. You are forced to give to who they choose to give to.
Okay, so now and I think that we could probably find all sorts of examples just here in Sheridan. Once a year, go to the city council meeting where they're giving our money to nonprofits. And I think, and I'm probably going to get the numbers wrong, but it was around $500,000 at the city level. I think it was a little bit north of that at the county level. But these are all organizations that are private, that are nonprofit. They don't pay taxes. How is it possible, given what's in the Constitution, fellas, that they get our money?
So in the Constitution, it does leave that provision. And I stated, and I have heard this from state level all the way down to city, county and city. Oh, well, we have a workaround for that. We have a way around that. And I guess for me, I'm basically drawing a line in the sand and saying, you know what, I'm not interested in your workaround. If you can actually show me an actual case of the poor that is in desperate need and no private source to help, then I guess I might look at that. But what we've done with that is that we've just exploited that into a place where we give money to anybody and everybody
The dog
that has
and
a
cat
handout.
shelter.
Yeah. And so I'm not interested in the workaround anymore. Like I said, if you've got a real legitimate case, I'm interested in looking at that. But I'm not interested in trying to find a way around what the spirit of the Constitution is. It would be a very rare case that I think you could show me that. I mean, the Arts Council, how's that for
the poor?
How's that for the poor? You can say, oh, they get to see a statue. Well, okay.
Now, the one statue that is staying, no matter what happens, is the rhino. That one I'm okay with. The rest of them, the stupid rabbit, the $35,000 rabbit that's down on Main Street, explain to me how that is support for the poor.
I'm okay with that one staying. I just don't want the government to pay for it.
Well, okay. So, all of these organizations, and what they do is I know the city of Sheridan, maybe other communities do it differently, but they do service contracts. And so we give you this money and you are going to allegedly provide this service. But when you ask them, all right, what's the specific service? Now, Ken, if I hire you to, I don't know, put new cabinets in my kitchen, you and I are we're going to come to a bargain of what those cabinets are going to look like, what your rate is going to be.
You just take whatever I got on the shelf.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
You need to look at his grants first.
Yes, you have to look at my grants and, taxpayer funding. So, all right, so what's the solution then? How do we claw all that back?
That is the solution, is to begin to claw it back. And it is that just clawing it back is a tremendously hard thing to do. I
Hence
ran
my
a
question.
How do we do it? We start repealing, and we start the legal aspect to it, and we get people who are not willing to look at the workarounds. We look at people and say, no, the Constitution is very clear. It has to be under the absolute control of the government. It has these certain things. It has these criteria. What is a governmental purpose? And that truly has to be looked at, and very hard.
I think one fun experiment, guys, would be to pass a law that say any of this charitable giving or forced charitable giving has to have an expressed explanation of how it's helping the poor.
Yeah.
And that communities will try to do that.
But that is exactly what the Constitution basically is saying.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you just said, and we don't even pretend there. Well, we have a workaround.
The kitty cat shelter.
Yeah.
The Nordic trails that the county gave money to. All right.
There, you just hit on something that just
fries you.
I get mailings all the time from this organization, that organization, dumping all kinds of money into making trails in the wilderness so that everybody can enjoy the wilderness. The wilderness is the wilderness.
We don't need a trail.
And
that's kind of the point.
And I get really frustrated with that. And all of these other things that we're doing that are looked at as such wonderful accoutrements, they're destroying things in my view. But
well,
I'm probably not at all in the majority side on that issue.
Well, when you convince yourself that it's government money, well then, if it's government money, then no individual person is providing it, so we can do whatever we want with it. And we've got to get past this idea that the government has its own money, because it doesn't. It's all
has
our
to steal
money.
it first.
So, was it last week? Week before last, we had a debate.
Mm-hmm.
The Republican Party put that on. You did exceptionally well. How do you feel about it?
I felt good about it. I thought it did distinguish the differences between he and I, especially on what is the social contract and what is the government contract. I mean, what should we look for in our government elected officials? And he's young, a nice guy, but he does not get that yet. He still thinks that it's important that we pick winners and losers. We steal the money and then we pick winners and losers.
Well, I love the line, and of course I love it because I wrote it, but in the piece I wrote about the debate, I said that by the end of the evening, Mark Jennings had demonstrated the depth of policy knowledge and legislative experience expected of a longtime legislator. In other words, you should have done well. You've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
while Ryan Koltiska often appeared to be auditioning for the job rather than showing that he was actually ready to perform it. If you'll indulge me for a minute, I just want to replay just a section of that debate, and I think it's great.
For you, Wyoming should switch to cash-based budgeting. You have 3 minutes.
Can you put my screen up there?
Thank you for that last question on the end of the night. I do believe it is the role of the legislature to decide what to do there. In that case, accrual-based, cash-based. There's a lot that goes on the state. There's a lot of money that goes through that. What I would say is what is going to serve the people the best. And I actually don't know what the Constitution, if the Constitution speaks to that. But what I would say about that is that
and he's the
I'm sure that there's a lot of debate that needs to go into that. Something's been in place for quite some time, and so it would take some work through with a lot of people, hopefully a lot of accountants too in the room, to work through that, because those are the ones who understand what would work best. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. You have 3 minutes.
In one word, it's absolutely we should. But I'll elaborate on that a little. On the other side of my one of the counterparts, Senator Barlow, when he was a representative, actually put out a cash-based budget bill. And believe it or not, as a ranking conservative, I signed on to that bill. It was probably the only bill I ever signed on with him. And that's because it makes sense. You must have the money in the bank before you write the checks. And that's how you guys do it, unless you have really high overdraft protection.
I do not.
Somebody's willing to do that for you. The state should be no different. We should have the money in the bank before we write those checks. So absolutely, we should do cash-based budgeting.
Mr. Koltiska, you have 2 minutes.
This is funny.
Thank you. Yes, I truly believe that this is something that needs to be debated with lots of people in the room, not just a yes or a no, but what works best for our state. I don't think that honestly, I don't think I'm smart enough as the only person in the room to say yes or no.
Wow.
And so I believe that getting
He's
the right people
not
in the
smart
room
enough.
would be the way I would go about that.
I mean, I don't mean to pick on the guy. I really don't.
I do.
But when you say stuff like that in public,
Can you imagine if I'd have said something like that, the Sharks?
you would never hear the end of it, or Mark for that matter. But now, and the response I got from this article was nothing from the other side. Now, normally when I say something like that on the show, it's comment after comment. Dan Sabrowski's after me, and I mean all the other redcoats are saying, well, how could you be so mean? But the truth is, the man is not ready.
Yeah. It was a simple yes or no question. I mean, to be honest with you, do you want to have the money in the bank or not?
His solution, though, it was absolutely right. And basically, his solution was get a bunch of people who are smarter than I am, put them in a room and have a debate and come up with an answer. That's what we call the legislature.
Right.
Yeah, and you don't have any part there.
Well, at the end of that video, and we didn't play it, but at the end of it, he looks at Mark and goes, well, Mark, what's the word? And Mark goes, the word is absolutely. And that's where the debate ended.
I think that's a difference. Hopefully, that's and hopefully humbly, that's a difference in leadership style. That somebody that has seen that, hey, leadership says, hey, this is what's best for the people. It's how the rest of us have to live our lives. Why shouldn't government have to do that? And somebody that's not really thought some of those things through.
Well, I did appreciate how you handled the debate. I mean, from the very beginning, it was obvious that it was a mismatch, that he was not prepared. And I don't mean to blow your head up. I'm just telling you, I appreciated how you handled it. You were cordial, funny at times, and it wasn't like, you were hammering him over the head with it. It was, you were Mark.
But once he gets past the socialistic side of things, he's a nice young man, maybe, and maybe there'll come a day, but
that day is not today.
Not today.
Hopefully. All right. Well, I've got one more topic I want to cover on the show. Mark, why don't you give us tell us why we should vote for you. Tell us how people can get a hold of you.
Well, in my 10 previous years, I was always in the top 3 for the most conservative voter in the legislature. Now I think there's a bunch of them in there. I'd have to vie for that number 1 spot, but I'm willing to give that a try. I have not changed my values and still believe in the Republican Party platform. Believe that we should be willing to support that. If we're going to put an R in front of our name, we should be willing to support that. Are you wanting my...
Yeah. Tell us how we can get a hold of you.
So you can get a hold of me at markjenningshd30.com or markjenningshd30@yahoo.com, or the phone number is 307-285-6552.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm sure we'll be talking. I mean, it just so happens you're my pastor, so we'll probably be talking. All right. There's one more topic I wanted to cover this morning on the show, and this one, I don't know. When I was writing this, I kind of felt like I was punching down a little bit, but I mean, it just I couldn't resist. So the mayor of Mills, Leah Juarez, she went on this tirade against the guy that's running against J.R. Riggins. His name is Neil Jeske. He's been on the program. Nice guy. I really like him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the mayor of Mills made all sorts of accusations against him. Probably the biggest one is that he wasn't qualified to run for the legislature because he hadn't lived here long enough. The truth is, under Wyoming law, you only have to live here 1 year, and that's full year, so 365 days, and then you can run for office. And I think there's an age limit on it too.
Yeah,
but
there is.
I mean, it's not anything outrageous. So there's a series of videos that Leah Juarez put out, and she got all sorts of TikTok hits, and so there was that accusation, and then she accused him of having some untoward business dealings in South Dakota, because he did live in South Dakota. So what we did is we wrote an article showing that, yes, indeed, he is eligible to run for office. And if you look at the piece, and Ken, if you'd put my screen up there. So here's the piece. Mills Mayor Leah Juarez makes accusations against Jeske. She's wrong. And if you look through here, you can look at all of the documents. That's his marriage license. They got married in Casper. That's a tax document that shows that he was there. There's a letter from his employer. I just couldn't resist an unflattering picture of her. Well, the Oil City News has come out, and here's another thing that I want to show you before I go into this. So the Oil City News sent Mr. Jeske this email, and what Neil told him in response to a request for comment is, well, I've already done an interview with the Open Range Record. You can refer to that. And so David Dudley at the Oil City News, he says, yes, please share a link to that story. But I have to say, I don't use other outlets reporting when dealing with this kind of thing. I'll need to speak with you directly. And quote, listen to this. It is your prerogative to decline to speak to me, but you wouldn't be doing yourself any favors if that's the way you want to go. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds a bit like a threat.
A little coercive.
A little coercive. Well, the Oil City News has responded. And as it turned out, they did not print a piece. What they did do is a little editorial from their editor. And the title of this piece is Oil City News Commentary. Inside the Newsroom, Campaign Sign Complaints, Wyo House Candidate Rumors. And let's see here. Okay, here we go. Third, I'm quoting now, the Oil City News has investigated the allegations against Jeske levied by Mills Mayor Leah Juarez on social media, which followed, by the way, she used her official Mayor of Mills social media account to do all of this stuff, which, by the way, is a straight-up violation of 913-105. We contacted the Secretary of State, and his answer was, yeah, it's totally against the law, and everybody's breaking it. But you got to have an attorney general that will prosecute. But this is it's absolutely against Wyoming statute. Anyway, Mills Mayor Leah Juarez on social media, which followed a previously submitted tip that we are already researching. We looked at his residency, business history, and eligibility. Per Wyoming law, candidates must live in their legislative district 1 year before the election. While Jeske unsuccessfully ran for Sioux Falls City Council in 2024, we learned he reactivated his Wyoming voter registration in August of that year. The move meant Jeske was considered an active voter, and it goes on to say that, yes, he's qualified. And then it finishes this way. There may be concerns among voters about the sincerity of Jeske's commitment to representing Wyoming, given his 2-year-old political aspirations in South Dakota. But voters questioning candidates is what an election season is all about. However, our decision not to publish is rooted in a fundamental principle. We report verifiable facts, not unsubstantiated political narratives. In other words, Mills Mayor Leah Juarez is full of crap, and you can count me. You can quote me on that.
And breaking the law.
And breaking the law, 913-105. My friends, it's an election season, and there's all sorts of rumors flying around. I would encourage you to just verify them. Do your own research. Find out if what you're saying is true, because it's an election, and there's a ton of bullcrap floating around. So just know that you know, verify your sources, and that's what we do here on Cowboy State Politics. Well, that'll do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Thank you to Mark Jennings for sitting in this morning.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics.